Hi everyone, my next guest for the LangFest interview series is this young polyglot who is mostly focused on Slavic languages, who also knows several others. Welcome, Valentin Timoschuk. All right, so Val, so
Yeah,
tell me, your path is a little different than other polyglots because you know you were raised with several languages like Ukrainian and Russian, but then you also learned some languages for places you live around the world, like Spanish in Argentina and English and French in Canada. But you also learn language on your own when you found out that you had a passion for languages. So tell me, when did you realize that languages was more like a passion and not something you just had to do to live in your environment?
yeah, of course. Yeah, I wasn't like the typical regular polyglot, as you say, where you stay one place usually and you study like 5, 7, 10 languages. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had a very different path. Yeah, I was born in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan, with my parents are Russian and Ukrainian. So yeah, I automatically had two languages since the beginning. I went to kindergarten. My kindergarten was in Ukrainian, and then eventually my parents moved to Argentina, and so yeah, I had to do Spanish there. So yeah, like once you travel to a country, you have to accept the rules, the terms.
Right.
So yeah, you have to learn the language. But in a way, it's I think it's the best way to learn a language because when you live there, you feel it on a different level. It's you interact with the native speakers, you interact with their culture, with their traditions, and it also shapes your personality and how do you behave in certain situations, how you behave with them. Because, for example, uh, if you live in South America, you have to know how to behave with the native people there and how to understand, especially understand their culture. I mean, like for example, with Russians, you can't behave in the same way as with the people from Latin America because Russians tend to be much more direct, for example, in a way, since some people find them rude. And for example, Latin American people from Latin America, they're a bit much more, I'll say, they're much more smooth. They're like they don't like to be direct, so they won't tell you something that, for example, they don't like you. They won't say that directly, so they'll find a much more like diplomatic way. So yeah, that's one of the advantages that I had in my life, that I was exposed to those different cultures, and I sometimes it's good for some life situations, and especially you meet different people, so you know how to behave. It's not only the language, because as you can see, the language is just a tool. It's also languages is an environment. It's like it's an ambient that surrounds yourself. It's a state of mind. It's a dimension. So
So you're just telling me you had to also learn the culture. So how would you describe yourself? Are you a little more direct like the Russians, or are you a
well,
little
it
more
depends.
smooth like South Americans, or is it just a combination in between?
Oh, sometimes I'll say more a combination because there's a little bit of those, I'll say 4 or 5 parts of me there. Latin American friends, I'll be a bit more like smooth if I'm hanging out with Russians. Depends, So you have to find the right balance between. Because if you're, as I said, if you're too rude to some people, they won't understand you. So yeah, it's not really the language. First of all, it's first because people think, yeah, I'll learn the language, but behind the language there's a culture, there's an ambient, there's an environment. So
Absolutely.
why, for example, a language, the culture also shapes the language, how the language is perceived around the world. So that's how it is.
So you have an excellent perspective on languages and how to learn the culture there. You've also learned some languages as a young adult, or I guess a
Yeah,
teenager. So
yeah,
you've had to like come to the conclusion at some point that this was like something that you wanted to do, right? Learn more languages.
yeah. Of course, yeah. I realized because all those when I was a kid, like 5, 10, I came to Canada. I started learning French, English. It was that learning experience was on a very subconscious level. So I didn't realize that I knew those like already 5 languages at 12 years old was pretty good. And then when I finished high school, I'm like, hey, you know what? Like I'm 17 and I speak 5 languages. It's actually quite expensive. So let's see if I can, like increase my number and try to like reach, like try to learn more languages, see how it goes. And it went pretty well because I started first with Italian, and it was pretty easy because I had more references, points of reference. I already spoke French. I was fluent in French. I was fluent in Spanish, and obviously Italian was like a piece of cake for me because like it was something in between. So once you have more points of references, it's much more easier to learn because you have common vocabulary, common grammar, pronunciation is easier. And same thing, I try to move on with Portuguese because I have a lot of friends who are from Brazil, and I like their music. And I also am a soccer fan, so I live in Argentina, so we have something in common. Oh, maybe not something in common because they have Pelé and we have Maradona, but it's something similar also. Like I really like their music, bossa nova, música popular brasileira. So something that I fell in love with.
In soccer between Brazil and Argentina.
Yeah.
Right?
This is a very heated subject in the South America, and this is how Argentina and Brazil relations are defined. First of all, if you like if you like Maradona, it means something is bad. If you like Pelé, so this is how it is. So basically I fell in love with their culture and with their music, especially. For example, I don't like salsa, the salsa music or merengue, but I like the Brazilian music. I like the bossa nova. I like the música popular brasileira because I find it much more smooth, much more relaxing, like less intense. So that's how I learned Portuguese. And as I said before, I had more points of reference. Again, I spoke Spanish, I spoke Italian, I spoke French. So it combines everything. Once the more languages you learn in a way, the easier it's to learn another language, no matter what, because you kind of feel it. You have like a passion for it. It starts to develop, and that's how it is.
Right. So what would you say to someone who didn't have kind of the multi-language upbringing that you had, but wants to learn another language?
Oh, you know what? Like people say, you're talented, but like honestly, I don't believe in talent. I just believe in hard work. So if a person is really motivated and it's willing to sacrifice, it's willing to put in their effort, I think they can do a lot of great things. For example, so obviously I was a bit lucky than other people because I traveled around the world. So since I was 5, from Kazakhstan to Ukraine, then to Argentina, then to Canada. Obviously, I did like a little world tour when I was when I was young. But my advice for people who are new to these things, to languages, it's don't be afraid. And my second advice is travel. Go to a country that doesn't speak your language and be exposed to native speakers, especially not to your speakers, not to people who speak English, but to people who don't speak English. You have to be exposed to it, and once you're exposed, you absorb it. You're like a sponge, you absorb all the water, you absorb all the language. So that's how it is. Be exposed and be motivated. That's it. I think without motivation, you can't do anything in life. If you're not motivated, like for example, I tried to learn a couple of different languages. I tried Swedish, Turkish, and like first of all, I started, it was pretty well, but then I just lost it. Like I didn't like it. I wasn't motivated for it. So that's
right. And shall I ask as well? Like you moved to Argentina to Canada. You're still pretty young. Did you have to maintain your Spanish at some point? Like, because
obviously, of course, I have friends who are studying Canada. Also, I listen to the radio, to their TV shows, sometimes music. So I try to of course. My Spanish slacked a bit. My level just dropped a bit because I don't live in Argentina anymore. But if I have the chance to come back there and maybe live for 3-6 months, I'll say I'll come back to 100% native.
So can you tell me, LangFest is coming up?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Tell me what you'll be doing.
Yeah, so basically, I'm gonna have 2 presentations. My first presentation is going to be about Argentina and the Spanish spoken there, and why is it so special. So I'm going to talk about their history and their culture, and why is it so different from other Spanish dialects and accents.
You've already given us a little glimpse here.
Yeah. Like it's not gonna be about Pelé and Maradona, but it's gonna be something similar to it. Yeah, it's gonna be about the Argentinian culture, and people, especially I invite all those people who live in South America to go there to see my presentation, because it's gonna give them a really interesting
cool
topic. Yeah. So yeah.
So
and my second.
What else? What's in the future for you?
Just to remind you, I have a second presentation as well with Diana Skaya. So she's presenting a movie. Yeah, her movie was presented at Cannes. So yeah, it's a big short movie. It's around half an hour, and it's gonna talk about the history of her family, and somehow that movie is related to the history of my family as well. So yeah, we're gonna talk about it. Actually, it's I was really surprised when Tetsu introduced me to her, and he said, talk to her, she's a really interesting person. I'm like, okay. And then we find out that we have relatives who live like really close, like from in Ukraine, like I'll say 100 kilometers. And yeah, so we have a really common history, a common background. So yeah, it's really interesting. So.
Well, Val, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today, and look forward to meeting you at LangFest.
Of course, yeah. See everybody at LangFest, and hope it's gonna be a blast, and everybody's gonna have fun.
Thank you for watching this video. Remember that you can register for the Montreal Language Festival on the website down below, and you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a nice day.